So welcome friends, what if Naruto became stepbrother of Kari K in Digimon movie? It has been there years since the defeat of Apocalypse and the chosen children had moved on with their lives. Many things have changed. The group, although stayed in touch, had gone their separate ways in life, but many things had stayed the same, namely one thing. I am late. Naruto's oversleeping habit, he was now rushing throughout his home, grabbing his school supplies before grabbing a piece of toast and rushing out the door. Later, Okawa-san, Naruto said as he rushed out the door and hopped the safety railing as he pulled a pair of familiar goggles over his eyes. Yes, Naruto has Taichi's old goggles. Yuko Yagami, now Naruto's adoptive mother, rushed through the open door waving a spoon. Naruto, I told you shut this door when you leave. Sorry Okawa-san. But I am running late. Naruto shouted as he fell before turning around. He stuck an arm out. Hooking a light post, Naruto did a flip before letting go, flying into the busy street outside the apartment. He smiled as he landed on a bus heading for his school. He sat down, smiled and waved at his Okawa-san as he started eating his toast. See you after school Okawa-san. Yuko only could sigh and smile at her adopted son. I can never stay mad at that boy, especially now that he finally started calling me his Okawa. Yuko walked back in, shutting the door behind her. It had taken Naruto the past 3 years to adjust to his new life. He had only recently started calling her and her husband his parents, and she really couldn't blame him. After having seen his life, she originally thought he would never call them that. Naruto smiled too, remembering when he first saw them as his parents a few months ago. Flashback. Naruto was lying in his bed, sleeping from a long day at school. Taichi was in the bunk below him, occasionally the two rolling over in sequence. However, tonight was different from usual nights. Naruto was thrashing around in his bunk, sweat rolling down his face. Taichi didn't notice seeing as he was just as heavy a sleeper as Naruto, that is until Naruto rolled off his bunk. Taichi jumped at the sudden loud crash. He looked over his bed sleepily to see Naruto thrashing about on the floor. Naruto! Taichi shouted, jumping out of his bed and to his adopted younger brother. It didn't take long for everyone to burst into the room to see what the noise was. Yuko didn't waste time when she saw Naruto, quickly grabbing him and cradling him until he calmed down. Susumu, their father, was right next to her helping soothe Naruto out of his nightmare. Taichi and Hikari both could only watch as Naruto slowly calmed down before he was peacefully asleep again. End of flashback. Hikari had told Naruto what happened the next morning. Naruto then told them that his nightmare was about his entire life, the last 3 years being a dream, like it had never happened. This was only answered by a family hug, everyone effectively squeezing the life out of him. That was when Naruto started to think of everyone differently. Well, everyone except one person, Hikari. Naruto only looked at his watch, ignoring the few looks from the tourists and waving at the many people who recognized him as he remembered a certain discussion with his adoptive parents. Flashback. Naruto was sitting on the couch watching TV, relaxing from his daily training. While his Okawa wished he would stop, he couldn't leave his shinobi nature behind. She soon came to accept it, only monitoring and making sure Naruto didn't bring any hidden kunai to school. His katana now hung proudly on the wall in his room. Naruto was wiping his head with a towel sitting on the couch when his Okawa-san and Odo-san walked over. They both held a serious face as Yuko said, Naruto, we need to talk. Naruto didn't ask why, only turning off the TV with the look of fear a child holds when he thinks he did something wrong. Yuko and Susumu both took a seat on both sides of Naruto. Yuko only smiled as she said, Naruto, we know. Know what? Naruto asked nervously, stiff as a board. How you feel about Hikari? Susumu said with his own smile. Naruto was now sweating nervously as he thought, how do they know? I haven't said a word to anyone. Yuko noticed how tense Naruto was acting and quickly pulled him into a gentle hug. It's okay, we just want to talk about it. Naruto relaxed, but was still somewhat tense. Both parents smiled, seeing as what kid wouldn't be tense in this situation. Yuko saw her husband nod, nodding back before saying, we've known about how you feel for Hikari for a long time, and we just want to say. Naruto didn't move, only hung his head and thought, I knew it couldn't last. We approve of it. Naruto jolted up, looking back and forth between Yuko and Susumu. Did you just? Both parents nodded as Susumu said, we know you will look out for her, and besides, Susumu said trailing off with a sly look, technically, you aren't related to her in any way, and no one knows you live with us. Susumu looked back with a sly grin, rising his eyebrows a few times. Naruto smiled, catching on to his meaning. Soon tears were forming in his eyes before he hugged his Okawa and Otu. The two only smiled as they hugged their son. Yuko winked and stuck out her tongue slightly. Should we tell him about the marriage document we set up? She asked, knowing Naruto would be too preoccupied to notice. Susumu only shook his head. Let's surprise them later with it. We have to talk to Hikari too. Both parents nodded as the plan for Hikari started to form. Unfortunately, Naruto didn't hear a word, so had no idea Hikari actually had feelings like that for him.
End of flashback. Naruto smiled as he rubbed his nose. You know we never did get to thank that agent, Naruto said, referring to the agent that made Naruto's living record. Naruto then chuckled to himself. Of course, since I help them catch criminals from time to time, so I guess making my record say I live with Hikari-chan wouldn't be a good idea, Naruto said, looking down the street. There's my stop. Naruto stood up. Seeing his school come into sight, he stood up, adjusting his blue open jacket and orange shirt as his ears and tail moved with the wind. He checked his black jean pockets and he tapped the tip of his sneakers on the top of the bus. He smirked as the bus slowed down when it got close to the school. Naruto leaped off the bus, turning around and waving at the bus driver, who waved back and smiled.
Naruto rushed across the schoolyard as he pulled his goggles off his eyes. First day of the new semester and I am late. 10, 9, 8, Naruto thought as he started to count down the clock.
With Hikari. Hikari was smiling as she sat in her seat, her tail wagging slowly as her ears twitched on occasion. She smiled as no one questioned her fox traits, everyone remembering the events that had taken place 3 years ago, so no one questioned them. Hikari smiled as she eyed the clock. Any second now, she whispered before she turned to open window. She chuckled, seeing as she had let Naruto sleep in on purpose. Hikari and Naruto had a small prank war going on between them. They were only small pranks, but the fun pranks nonetheless. Hikari also blushed a little at the thought of Naruto. Naruto-kun, Hikari smiled, remembering the talk she had with her parents. They had accepted her feelings for Naruto, same basic talk and it went the same basic way. Hikari was lost in her thoughts when she heard, I am in the same class as Hikari-chan again. Hikari turned to the voice to see Daisuke Motomiya. Hikari quickly made her blush disappear then turned to Daisuke and smiled, nice to see you again. Daisuke smiled, leaning onto her desk. Earlier there was this weird guy that told me my goggles were cool. Hikari tilted her head puzzled. Daisuke only smiles, she's so cute like that. Daisuke then noticed the desk on the opposite side of Hikari was open. Yes. Naruto Baka isn't here. Now's my chance. Daisuke's chance was quickly shot down as the teacher walked in. Everyone, take your seats and quiet down. Daisuke's ego deflated as he sat down. The teacher was soon taking roll, and stopped at a certain name. He then looked at the clock. He has 3, 2. Made it. A shout came as a blue and orange blur came in through the open window and landed in the seat next to Hikari. Naruto laughed as he stuck the landing in his chair. I barely made it.
The teacher smiled and nodded. I see they were correct about your impeccable timing, Uzumaki, and yes, you were right on time. The teacher then resumed the roll call. Once he finished, he gestured to the door. We have a new student joining us this semester. He's Takeshi Takaru. Naruto smiled when he heard the name, leaning over to Hikari. Takaru's transferring here? Did you know? He whispered to her. Hikari smiled, but shook her head. It's a surprise to me too. Naruto chuckled lightly as Takaru took a seat in an empty desk in front of them. It's been a long time.
Too long, Naruto said as he held out his knuckles.
Takaru gave them a tap as Hikari said, you've gotten taller.
Naruto then noticed Daisuke suddenly become furious out of the corner of his eye. This only made Naruto sigh. Daisuke's labeled you already Takaru. Takaru only tilted his head in confusion as Hikari sighed. Naruto took it upon himself to explain. Daisuke has a major crush on Hikari-chan, and he basically will attack anyone who is familiar with her. He still won't get off my case.
Of course these don't help, Hikari added with a joking smile. What don't help? Takaru asked, now lost on the subject. Naruto and Hikari only made their ears twitch, drawing Takaru's attention and making him realize what they were talking about. Why don't you hide those? Naruto only shrugged. All that would have done is stop a few rumors. Other than that, nothing would change, Naruto said dejectedly. Takaru noticed Naruto's sudden change in mood. What's wrong, Naruto? Hikari smiled playfully, knowing what Naruto was thinking about. You're thinking of your fan club, aren't you, Naruto-kun? Naruto only nodded. Now I know why Sasuke acted like such a teme. I am just really glad they don't know I live with Hikari-chan. Hikari nodded as the image of an angry mob destroying the school trying to catch her formed in her mind. She could only sweat drop nervously. Yeah, they can get very aggressive. Takaru was only confused on the subject. Naruto simply waved his hand. I tell you about it somewhere else.
Takaru only nodded as the teacher suddenly said, pay attention. The days seemed to fly by for the three, with Hikari and Naruto showing Takaru the ropes of the school. It was soon lunchtime for the three. Naruto and Takaru were sitting in a tree outside the building. Takaru was only looking at the ground before turning back to Naruto asking, "Why are we out here?"
Naruto shuddered as he answered, "Believe or not, I have a fan club." Takaru looked puzzled as Naruto explained. "They're worse than parasites, they try to follow me home, raid me just about any time they see me, and once they nearly caught me after gym." Naruto shuddered in fear. "Trust me Takaru, we're safer up here than anywhere else." Takaru nodded, opening Shi Bento as he asked, "But then why is Hikari getting yours and her food?" Naruto smiled at that question. "Let's just say I made my #1 rule clear, do not mess with Hikari-chan," Naruto said in a cold tone that made Takaru shiver. "Hey!" A shout came from the ground below. The two looked down to see Hikari holding two trays of food with her tail slowly wagging back and forth. "They had ramen today." Naruto's ears perked up when he heard this. Hikari smiled before crouching slightly, then leaping up the tree.
Takaru looked on in shock as Hikari landed gracefully next to Naruto on a separate tree limb. "Here Naruto-kun." "Thank you Hikari-chan," Naruto said happily as he started to eat the ramen. "It's not Ichiraku's, but it's still good ramen." Hikari smiled as she started to eat her own food when she noticed Takaru's shocked face. "What's wrong Takaru?" You just," was all Takaru said as he pointed at the ground then to the tree branch Hikari was standing on. Hikari thought for a second before realizing what Takaru was talking about. "Oh, Naruto-kun taught me a few tricks." Naruto smiled, having finished his ramen. "Oh yeah, that's a very funny story Takaru." Now Hikari was panicking. "Naruto-kun. Don't tell him about that." "Why not? It's funny, and besides, you told Sora and Mimi about when I got stuck in the fridge." Naruto came back with smiling. Hikari only blushed and looked away. "Okay, but if you say anything you should nt." Hikari trailed off, using her hands to make her point. Naruto only laughed. Okay. Naruto then turned to Takaru. "Your mom gave you the talk right?" Takaru nodded, which made Naruto smile more. "Good, then this will be simple. Hikari-chan had that talk too. About 2 years after we saved the worlds." Takaru looked a little surprised as Naruto said, "Another story for another time." Anyway, shortly after the talk. Flashback. Naruto was enjoying a movie with Taichi. The two were completely unaware of the talk Hikari was having with her mother in the back. At least they were until Hikari came bursting out of the back room in tears. She ran to the couch and jumped onto Naruto's lap, surprising both him and Taichi. Naruto was into too much shock to check on Hikari as Taichi asked, "Hikari, what's wrong?" Hikari didn't answer Taichi, instead shouting, "Naruto-kun." This brought Naruto out of his surprise. "Why yeah. Teach me," Hikari shouted, clenching onto Naruto's shirt. Naruto and Taichi only blinked in confusion as Naruto asked, "Teach you what?" "To defend myself," Hikari shouted at him. Naruto and Taichi only looked at each other in confusion, blinking a couple times before turning around to the room Hikari came out of asking at the same time, "What did you tell her?" Yuko came out of the room. "I only told her what every young lady needs to know when they go through what she's going through." Naruto and Taichi both shook their heads a little. Puberty. Naruto then thought of something, "But Hikari-chan isn't that a bit early for her?" Yuko nodded, but walked up to the three as Hikari was using Naruto as her pillow. "Yes, but a mother knows."
Hikari, who was tired of being ignored but managed to calm down, "Naruto-kun, will you please teach me?"
Naruto thought about it for a minute before nodding. "Why not? Knowing how to defend yourself is a good thing anyway." Hikari smiled happily, hugging Naruto and squeezing him until he turned blue. She let go once she realized what she was doing, thanking Naruto again before rushing off to her room. Naruto only coughed a little before turning to Taichi. "You want to learn too Taichi?" Taichi thought for a minute before nodding with a smile too. Yuko was frowning throughout the conversation, finally voicing her thoughts after they had finished. "I don't approve of this." Naruto only turned around and scratched his head with a toothy grin. "Come on Yagami-san, I won't teach them anything dangerous, just how to use chakra and defend themselves. Is that a bad thing?" Remember, Naruto didn't start calling her his Okawa-san until a few months before the story started. This is 2 years after the prequel ended. Yuko stared Naruto down, but eventually gave in. "Fine, but I am going to watch the first few times and tell you on what I approve on." End of flashback. Naruto chuckled at the end of the story as Hikari blushed from embarrassment. Takaru nodded at the end before realizing something. "Wait, if Hikari hit that time a year ago, then finish that sentence and you'll regret it," Naruto said with a warning tone. He leaned over and whispered, "Hikari-chan is very sensitive on the subject." Takaru nodded, keeping his mouth shut, but there was one question he decided to ask: "How do you keep it hidden?" Hikari only blushed. turning away muttering something. What? Takaru asked, turning to Naruto. None of your concern right now, Takaru, Naruto said, dropping the subject. She'll tell you if she wants, it's nothing personal, just very personal for her. Takaru only nodded, seeing Hikari was blushing a deep red. Naruto then made a change in the subject. So how's the new place, Takaru? Takaru smiled, starting another conversation. It was however short as Naruto quickly covered Takaru's mouth. Don't make a sound. Naruto quickly bent some branches with a lot of brush below them. He made it to where they couldn't be seen from the ground. Takaru only looked on in confusion, asking, what's going on? Hikari smiled now, getting over her embarrassment when she saw Naruto's act. Naruto's fan club should be making their rounds to find him again. Takaru, now curious, took a peek through the leaves. Right below them was a large portion of the school's female population, and they all seemed to be searching vigorously for Naruto. Takaru carefully sat back against the tree. Why don't you just talk to them? They seem nice. Naruto only shuddered. They seem nice, but the second they see me, it's worse than apocalypse. Hikari only nodded. It's true actually, they once followed Naruto-kun for 8 blocks before he finally managed to lose them. But Naruto can, Takaru said quietly as he remembered Naruto's many talents. That's what's scary, Naruto said, watching the group on the ground intently. Takaru gulped and nodded, now staying quiet until it was clear. The two silently ate their food, seeing as Naruto had finished his a while ago. Soon the bell rang again, signaling lunch was over. Naruto stood up, dusting his clothes off before grabbing Takaru's shirt. Let's go, Hikari-chan. Hikari nodded and hopped to the school roof, Naruto following her with a now screaming Takaru. Takaru calmed down when they landed, patting his chest saying, please warn me before you do that again. Naruto only laughed. Sorry, force of habit, I tended to do it with Hikari before I taught her how to jump. Now let's get back to class before my fan club shows up, Naruto said, looking around for the bloodsuckers known as fangirls. When the three made it to the classroom, then enjoyed the peace, Naruto only smiled and laughed when Daisuke barely made it to the classroom before the bell rang. Naruto then passed a note with a smiley face that said, couldn't find us. Naruto nearly fell out of his chair at Daisuke's fuming face. Skip to the end of school. Naruto, Hikari, and Takaru were standing at the front of the school. Hikari was talking with Takaru as Naruto finished changing his shoes. Did you finish unpacking yet? Pretty much, Takaru said as he picked his bag back up. You should have called, Naruto said as he straightened up. I would have came over and made some clones. We'd have it done the day you got there. Hey you, a voice came from behind the three. They all turned around to see a still angry Daisuke standing in the door. Naruto only sighed as Hikari became annoyed. His name isn't you, it's Takaru. Naruto only shook his head. See, he labeled you already. Daisuke didn't seem to hear Naruto as he said, Takaru, what's your relationship with Hikari-chan? What are you talking about? Takaru asked as Hikari simply sighed and Naruto shook his head. Naruto quickly decided to end it right there. Daisuke. Daisuke jumped. Hearing Naruto's voice, he quickly backed away, now nervous. And Naruto, when did you get there? Naruto simply glared at Daisuke. Daisuke, I believe I went over this with you once before about trying to invade Hikari-chan's personal life. Do you need another talking to? Naruto said, referring to a time the previous year. Daisuke had decided to declare Hikari his girl. That set Naruto off like a bomb. Before anyone could blink, Naruto and Daisuke were gone. Everyone heard screaming outside. Rushing to the window, there they saw Daisuke tied upside down in a tree with Naruto standing on the ground glaring at him with a fury not known by anyone who knew him. Hikari, although was surprised by the sudden hostage situation, only sighed and started walking to the outside to stop Naruto from hurting Daisuke. Too much. Daisuke was now shaking violently, and no, I was just joking. Hikari simply grabbed Naruto's arm and whispered, don't Naruto-kun, you got in enough trouble last time. Fine, Naruto whispered back, remembering the scolding the Yuko gave him for scaring half the school. Ah, there you are, another voice said to the group. Everyone turned to the door to see a girl with glasses standing there with a note. Miyako-san, Takaru said, recognizing the girl. Miyako walked up to Hikari, moving to open the note. You're Yagami Hikari-san, right? Yes, that's right, Hikari said, now confused at the new girl's appearance. Miyako then opened the note. Do you know a Yagami Taichi? The three read the note, suddenly tensing as Hikari said, Oni-chan. There was no subtitles as to what the note said. Sorry, but it was important. We'd better head to the computer lab, Naruto said, Rushing back into the school building, Hikari and Takaru nodded and followed, leaving the confused Daisuke and Miyako, who both followed out of curiosity. As they made their way to the computer lab, they all saw someone climbing the stairs next to the room. There was Kushiro, or as Miyako said, Izumi-senpai. Kushiro stopped. Seeing everyone in the hallway, Miyako-kun, can we use the computer lab? Miyako seemed to idolize Kushiro as she folded her hands together. Absolutely, absolutely. It's an honor to let you use the lab even after you've graduated. I don't think we have time to talk, Naruto said as he walked into the computer lab. Yeah, now isn't a good time to get sidetracked, Kushiro said, hopping onto one of the computers. I got the mail too, but the batteries ran out on my D-terminal, and it was faster to come here than go to home from school, Kushiro said before sending Taichi an email. With Taichi in the digital world, Taichi was anxiously staring at his D-terminal when Kushiro's email appeared. He smiled happily. All right. It's Kushiro, and he's got Takaru, Hikari, and Naruto with him. Taichi. Agumon called from a bit down the cave they were in. Come here for a minute, Taichi. Back in the real world. Hey, where is the digital world? Miyako asked, having read the previous email. Is it a new theme park? Naruto chuckled lightly as Takaru shrugged at Hikari, who was at a loss for words to explain it. Daisuke was looking perplexed as he said, you know, I remember Taichi-senpai saying something about it once. He said it was full of something called Digimon. Takaru looked slightly surprised at Daisuke. You know Taichi-san. From the soccer club, Hikari informed Takaru. Naruto then decided to give Daisuke and Miyako a refresher. Remember 3 years ago when the sky basically split open? A nod from the two let Naruto continue. That was the digital world. It's a long story I'll explain some other time. Right now, we need to go check on Taichi, Naruto said, turning to Kushiro and ignoring the look of shocked Daisuke and Miyako. Hey, is the gate open yet? Give me a minute, I have to unlock some of my security protocols, Kushiro said, still typing on the computer. Miyako-san, a voice said from the hallway before a boy named Iori appeared at the door. You're supposed to fix our computer. Miyako adjusted her glasses as she turned to the boy. Oh yeah, I almost forgot. A ping from the computer got everyone's attention as Kushiro said, just as I thought, the gate is open. Back with Taichi. Taichi, Agumon, Tailman, and Patamon were gathered around what looked like an egg with a flame design and a sharp horn, but what stood out was the crest of courage symbol right below the horn. Taichi only looked in surprise. Isn't that the crest of courage? Agumon, unknowingly stating the obvious. It seems like it's been here forever, Tailman said as Taichi bent over. It looks like the crest of courage, but, Taichi said, stopping as he grasped the egg. As soon as he did, the egg gave off a bright flash, erupting into a pillar of red light. The light died, showing 3 balls of light before they took off into the sky, leaving everyone stunned. Back in with everyone in the human world. Take me with you. Taichi-senpai is in trouble, right? Daisuke was shouting, trying to convince the others to take him with them. That's impossible. It's not like anyone can go, Takaru said, trying to explain it. You need something like this, Naruto said, showing his digivice. Without one, you can't go. I don't care if it's impossible. I said I am going. Daisuke retorted. Naruto sighed, about to burst Daisuke's bubble when a light came from the screen with the gate. Then 3 brighter lights flew out of it, each a different color, blue, yellow, and red. The blue light flew into Daisuke's hands as he tried to protect himself from the light while the other 2 flew out of the room. When the light died down in Daisuke's hand, he held out what looked like a digivice more shaped like a walkie-talkie. What is this? A digivice, Naruto said calmly, but was just as shocked as everyone else. But, it's nothing like ours, Hikari said, looking at her digivice. The gate has on this monitor is open, Kushiro said, looking at the monitor. Everyone stopped looking at Daisuke and back to the computer as Takaru said, then we can go to the digital world from here. Daisuke walked up next to everyone. I am going too. I can go with this, right? Daisuke asked holding up his digivice. Yeah, Kushiro nodded, if that really is a digivice. Naruto and Hikari both became impatient, holding out their digivices saying at the same time, we're going now. The screen glowed before becoming a bright light as Naruto and Hikari both disappeared into the screen. Me too, Takaru said, following Naruto and Hikari into the computer. Daisuke only stared in shock, seeing 3 people just disappear. Kushiro was as calm as always, only asking, what'll you do, Daisuke-kun? Kushiro's question brought Daisuke out of his shock as he thrusted his new digivice forward. I am going too. Daisuke then disappeared into the screen like everyone else. Kushiro looked as his digivice preparing to go into the computer when Miyako skid to a stop at the door. Izumi-senpai. She shouted as Iori popped his head around the corner. Miyako's and Iori's sudden appearance surprised, causing him to juggle his digivice for a second before quickly hiding it behind his back with an obvious too happy and nervous smile. Miyako ran up to Kushiro, looking like she was in a panic as she asked, "What was that light just now?" Kushiro looked away, trying to think of a convincing lie as he said, I dunno." Kushiro then laughed nervously, now feigning ignorance. In the digital world, Naruto looked around at the forest around, taking in a deep breath. It feels good to be back. Well, what if the circumstances were different? Naruto added, remembering why they were there as he scratched his head. Naruto then noticed his clothes had changed, as well as Hikari's and Daisuke's. Instead of describing, I found pictures. I posted a link on my profile to them. Yes, I am being lazy, but at least I gave you something, and I shouldn't have to post a picture of Daisuke, so I want. Daisuke looked around at the forest they all appeared in. So this is the digital world? Daisuke asked no one in particular, patting his arm. Then he noticed his change in clothes. My clothes changed. Daisuke asked no one again, looking over himself. Yeah, so did Hikari-chan's, Naruto pointed out, causing Hikari to look at her clothes. Takaru looked at the three before asking, why didn't mine change like everyone else's? Naruto grabbed his chin in thought. Well, I don't know about Daisuke, but I did train Hikari-chan over the last 3 years. That may be the reason, since our clothes changed into clothes more combat-oriented. Train? Daisuke asked, looked at the two. Trained her in what? I'll tell you later if I feel like it. Let's find Taichi right now. Naruto said, leaping up to the top of a tree in a single jump. Daisuke was looking slack-jawed as he looked up at Naruto. Naruto simply used his digivice to find Taichi's then look for a landmark. He looked around in the direction his digivice was showing Taichi to be. As he looked around he couldn't help but notice a large amount of black-colored obelisks around. I wonder what they're for. Something tells me it isn't good, but Taichi-ni-chan comes first, Naruto thought as he continued to look around. All he could see was trees. He leaned over, looking down at Hikari. Hey. Do you see anything Taichi might use to take cover in? Hikari and Takaru looked around for a minute before spotting a cave. Seeing as Daisuke was still staring at Naruto in shock, Hikari looked back up to Naruto. Naruto-kun. There's a cave nearby. Oni-chan must be in there. Hikari said before looking at her beeping digivice, confirming their suspicions. Naruto nodded, landing next to Hikari. Alright, we'd better head there quietly. Taichi said he needed help but never said from what. By the way Hikari-chan, Naruto added, turning back Hikari. I like the new look, he said with a smile. Hikari only blushed, not saying anything as she started walking to the cave. Takaru only laughed. Being a part of the inner circle that knew Naruto and Hikari both cared for each other, everyone one of the old chosen children knew, but never said anything so they would figure it out themselves. Naruto was only confused, scratching his head as he walked behind Takaru. What's so funny? This only made Takaru laugh harder, since everyone also knew the two didn't know about the other's feelings. Daisuke was too busy looking around as he followed the three to pay attention on what they were saying. So this is the digital world. Not so different from our world. Daisuke trailed off, stopping when he saw a drink machine. What's that doing here? Daisuke said, moving closer to the machine. Naruto's ears picked up Daisuke no longer walking, so he turned around just in time to see an army of Numemon come out of the machine. Daisuke was sitting in the middle of them, scared for his life. Naruto only started laughing, getting Hikari's and Takaru's attention. The two turned, laughing at the situation Daisuke had gotten into. The Numemon ignored Daisuke, running off into the forest. Naruto managed to calm down enough to say, hey, hurry up Daisuke, Naruto said, resuming the walk to the cave. Daisuke hopped back to his feet, hurrying behind the three. Was that a Digimon? That was one kind, some are a lot cuter, Hikari said, not even looking up from her digivice. And some are a lot scarier, Takaru added. And the rest will love you or kill you, Naruto finished, folding his arms behind his head as he looked at the sky. Daisuke now looked scared as Hikari said, you don't have to say it's nonchalantly Naruto-kun. Naruto only shrugged. Hey, it's better he knows it now before it happens, plus you can't really blame me about being nonchalant about it, Naruto said before his ears twitched. They're close, I can hear Taichi's digivice. Hikari perked up at that, straightened her ears straight up before they twitched. Yeah, it sounds like they're just up ahead. Hikari said, breaking into a run. Oni-chan. Hikari shouted as Taichi, Agumon, Tailman, and Patamon came into view. The groups ran up to meet each other, Taichi noticing Hikari's new outfit. "Hikari, what are you wearing?" Hikari's sweat dropped as she looked over her outfit again. "I don't know honestly, it changed when we got here along with Naruto-kun's and Daisuke's." Taichi heard this. Looking over the two, Daisuke's looked the most normal, but Naruto's didn't surprise Taichi at all. Naruto seemed preoccupied, looking around before asking, "Renamon and Kyuubi aren't will you?" Taichi looked surprised. "You can't sense them?" Naruto shook his head. "No, it's bothering too, I can't sense them at all, whatever's going on is blocking my connection with them." Taichi nodded as Hikari and Takaru had their reunion. Hikari then noticed Tailman was missing her tail ring as she held Tailman. "Tailman, what happened?" Tailman frowned, explaining on how she lost her ring while escaping from a mind-controlled Digimon. "I escaped, but a human calling himself the Digimon Kaiser has been brainwashing the other Digimon," Tailman finished as the group stopping in the cave with the egg. "Human. There's another kid besides us that's here in the digital world?" Takaru asked Tailman concerned. Tailman nodded. "Yeah, with a digivice unlike Hikari's." "Unlike ours," Naruto muttered before pulling out Daisuke's digivice. "Does it look like this?" Naruto asked, holding out the digivice as Daisuke looked surprised as he searched himself for the digivice. When did he? Everyone sighed as Tailman pointed at the digivice. "Yes. It looks like that." Daisuke looked a little panicked as Naruto said, "Relax Daisuke. We all know you're not the Digimon Kaiser." Naruto then turned to Tailman. "Daisuke's digivice just came out of a computer along with two others, the other two flew off somewhere before we figure out what was going on," Naruto said unfolding his arms. Taichi seemed to nod to Naruto's explanation as Naruto tossed the digivice back to Daisuke. He then said, "Word of advice, your back pocket is actually the easiest to have pickpocketed." Daisuke nodded, putting the digivice in his front pocket this time. Tailman was shaking in anger. "Because of that digivice, we can't evolve." "A digivice that stops Digimon from evolving? That can't be right." "Maybe," Naruto thought, remembering the obelisks he had seen when he was in the tree. He looked back at Tailman. "Tailman, what do you know about those black obelisks?" "Black obelisks?" Hikari asked, turning to Naruto. Naruto nodded. "Yeah, I saw them when I was in the tree, there were hundreds of them, and something about them gave me a bad feeling. Maybe they're why you can't evolve," Naruto said, turning around to everyone. "Think about it. It would make more sense than a digivice, something made to help Digimon evolve, stopping them, plus one digivice being able to stop and control thousands of Digimon. If you think about it, it's not possible, plus why else would all of those obelisks be around?" Tailman thought back to when she was attacked. "Yeah, there was an obelisk when the Digimon Kaiser took over where I was today, and there's one not too far from here too." Naruto then tensed, sensing something near them. His hand moved slowly to his kunai holster, quietly popping the button holding it shut. He looked around the cave, making it seem like he was curious as Hikari spoke. "A human should be hunting Digimon, and claiming to be the king of Digimon. How preposterous."
Naruto absently listened, still looking around. Then he saw his target, throwing a kunai before anyone could blink. He nailed what looked like a black ring, shattering it to pieces. Everyone jumped when they heard something shatter. They looked at Naruto as he made his way over to his target. He picked up a piece, examining at it before turning to Tailman. "What is this thing?" "A dark ring, or the pieces of one now," Tailman said, kicking a piece away. "They're what lets the Digimon Kaiser control Digimon. So right now we need to focus on the rings and obelisks, then we deal with the Kaiser," Naruto growled, crushing the piece of the ring he was holding. He then turned back to the others. "By the way, what's with that?" Naruto asked, pointing at the egg with the crest of courage. Taichi only shook his head. "I don't know, it has the crest of courage on it, but I can't lift it, it's really heavy." Naruto walked over, grabbing the egg and trying to life it. Naruto grunted as he strained to life the egg. The ground around the egg and Naruto started to crack under the force Naruto was pulling. He took a breath, letting go of the egg. "It's not heavy, it's a seal." "A seal?" Agumon said, walking over and looking at the egg. "Yeah," Naruto stood up, backing away from the egg. "It's sealing something and Taichi isn't the one meant to take it. But then that means..." Naruto looked over to Daisuke. "I am going to punch something if I am right." Naruto sighed, moving behind Daisuke and giving him a shove. "Daisuke, try to take the egg." Daisuke stumbled from Naruto's shove. He regained his balance and turned around. "What? Why me? And what makes you think I can life it? I mean even you couldn't and you." Daisuke looked back at the cracked ground around the egg. "How can I lift it if you couldn't and you did that?" Daisuke yelled, pointing to the cracks. Naruto and Hikari both held their ears before Naruto said, "1. Don't yell. It hurts our ears," Naruto said, giving a deadpan stare as he pointed them out. And 2. Tai Chi is the first owner of the crest of courage and he can't life the egg-looking thing. You just got a Digivice and Tai Chi finds that. What are the odds? Naruto said, crossing his arms. Just try, we don't have anything to lose from it. Daisuke just looked around at everyone. They all nodded in their own way. Daisuke nodded back. Moving to the egg, he crouched down, grasping the egg tightly. He took a breath, getting ready to pull as hard as he could. Then he did, only to fall on his behind as the egg came out of its place with ease. Naruto smirked, I told you. But before anyone could say anything else, a fire-red light came from a hole in the ground. The light turned into a column as a shape took form. The light faded away, revealing a small blue dragon-like Digimon that seemed to be asleep. It opened its eyes however as soon as the light was completely gone, springing to life with a cheer of, Yahoo! The Digimon starting hopping in circles around Daisuke, continuing to cheer, Yahoo Yahoo you moved the digimental. The Digimon stopped, holding out its hand, I am Vmon. Who are you? Daisuke was shocked for yet another time that day, only answering, D Daisuke. Nice to meet you Daisuke, Vmon said, pumping his arms, I've been waiting a long time for you. Naruto held a deadpan look as he turned to Taichi, doesn't this seem a little too familiar Taichi? Naruto asked, remembering when Taichi told him on how their journey first started. Taichi only nodded, sweat dropping as he remembered this incident, only with him and Agumon when they had first met. Naruto, as Vmon talked with Daisuke, moved over to where the digimental was. He sweat dropped turning to Vmon. Hey Vmon. Vmon turned to Naruto as he pointed at the hole the light came out of. They crammed you into here? Yeah, it was very uncomfortable, Vmon said, crossing his arms and looking away. Being stuck in a hole for 3 years, that's gotta suck, Naruto said, looking back to him. Vmon tilted his head, how did you know it was 3 years? Naruto's eye was twitching, call it a hunch. Naruto was actually thinking, what the hell? If the people who protect the digital world saw it coming, then why in the hell do they leave it up to us? Again. Hikari, being able to read Naruto after the years, only shook her head, let it go Naruto-kun, it'll become clear someday. Everyone looked confused only to have an earthquake stop everyone's thoughts on the subject. Daisuke looked around at the crumbling cave, what the heck, earthquake? No. Look up there, Takaru said, pointing up at a hole that formed in the ceiling. A Digimon forced its way through the hole, roaring in anger. A Monochromon, Naruto shouted, then his eyes spotted something unpleasant, and it has a ring on it. The Monochromon landed in front of the group after falling from the hole it made. Naruto drew 2 kunai, holding them both in reverse grip preparing to fight when the ceiling started to give way. Naruto scowled, blocking a few of the rocks that nearly landed on him. Everyone run. This place will cave in any second. Everyone ran down the tunnel to the way out, the Monochromon right behind them as the room they were in caved in. The Monochromon charged up his attack behind them all. Naruto scowled, stopping as everyone ran by. Hikari stopped, turning to Naruto, Naruto-kun. Go. Naruto shouted over his shoulder, I'll cover you until you get out. Naruto finished, turning back just in time to block Monochromon's volcano strike with his kunai. Hikari nodded her and everyone else running out of the tunnel. Daisuke and Vmon were the last ones out, stopping at the edge of a cliff-like hill as Daisuke caught his breath. Taichi looked up, seeing Daisuke still at the top of the edge of the hill. Daisuke, down here hurry. Daisuke was too busy looking down to hear Naruto's yell. Vmon turned around, hearing Naruto's yell. He turned just in time to see Naruto come flying out of the tunnel, being shot out by Monochromon's attack like a bullet out of a gun. Vmon pushed Daisuke out of the way, down the hill to avoid Naruto and the attack. Naruto grunted as he slid to a stop on the ground, the attack dying out. He grabbed his right arm, it being badly burned by the attack. He looked back up to see Daisuke lying at the bottom of the hill. Daisuke, get up and run. Daisuke only grunted, opening his eyes and looking at Vmon, thanks. Vmon nodded, Daisuke, if you could give me your courage, if you could say digimental up. Naruto scowled, throwing the handle of the now broken kunai, then blade melted. Damn, I can barely grip my right hand right now. I can't hold a Rasengan until my arm heals. And not even a kunai can stand the temperature of lava. Naruto-kun your arm. Hikari shouted, now next to him. She gasped at the burn mark from the back of his hand to his shoulder. It was healing, but slowly since Kyuubi was not in the seal to help regulate the chakra flow. It'll be fine, Naruto said, standing up holding his arm. Takaru and Taichi came running up to the two, concerned for Naruto. However, before they could ask if he was okay, the Monochromon came leaping off the edge of the hill, straight toward Daisuke and Vmon. Daisuke and Vmon both turned to see Monochromon heading right for them. They both closed their eyes, waiting for the hit. It never came, only the sound of a grunt, yell of pain, and slam. They both turned to see Naruto holding Monochromon by his horn with both hands, pointing Monochromon's face to the ground. Naruto turned to the two, struggling to keep his hold on Monochromon. Hurry! Go! Daisuke and Vmon scrambled to their feet, running over to the others. Daisuke stopped next to them, looking back at Naruto. How is he holding that thing back? No time to explain it, Daisuke. We need to go now, Taichi said, starting to lead everyone away. But Naruto, Daisuke said, looking back at him, we can't just leave him. Everyone looked at Daisuke when they heard the Monochromon roar. They turned just in time to see Monochromon blast the ground, sending it and Naruto flying. Naruto slammed into a tree as the Monochromon crashed into the hill. Daisuke gasped, turning to run to Naruto when Hikari grabbed Daisuke's arm. I know, Oni-chan. Hikari said, turning back to Taichi. I am going to go help Naruto-kun. Hikari. Taichi shouted at her, only to see her already running to Naruto. Daisuke was now shocked and confused. What are they thinking? They'll be killed. Daisuke shouted, moving to stop Hikari when Takaru grabbed his shoulder. There's a lot about them you don't know, Daisuke, Takaru said. Letting go. I want to help too, but right now I would just get in the way. They can do things that no one can even come close to doing, Takaru said. Turning to the two, Daisuke didn't believe Takaru until he saw how hard Takaru was clenching his fist. Daisuke looked back just in time to see Hikari grab Naruto and leap out of the way of Monochromon's volcano strike. Landing in a tree, Monochromon looked around in confusion when the two disappeared. Hikari and Naruto landed on the tree branch with ease. Hikari knelt down next to Naruto, checking his arm. Naruto, are you okay? Yeah, Naruto said, wincing when Hikari touched his arm. Teme got my arm in the blast again. Now I can't even form a Rasengan. Not that I could use it on Monochromon. If only we could get to that ring, Naruto mumbled, trying to move his hand. I can't even make a hand sign, so Kage Bunshin are out of the question. Hikari, Naruto said, tossing her a kunai before pulling one out for himself. Hikari looked at the kunai, a little shaken. Naruto-kun, you don't want me to. Naruto chuckled loosely, don't worry, I don't want you to hurt him. His shell is hard enough to break kunai. I know that from the tunnel. Tried to hit the ring only to watch my kunai shatter on impact. Naruto then stood up, drawing Monochromon's attention. First chance you get, hit the ring. Hikari nodded, turning to Monochromon holding the kunai. The two leap off the branch, splitting up as Monochromon fired another volcano strike at the two. Daisuke watched in shock as the two worked together to try and save the Monochromon from the ring around it. He only started when Taichi's shout reached him. Daisuke, come on. We need to give them room to fight. Daisuke turned to Taichi, still watching Naruto and Hikari try to save the Monochromon. Then something in him stopped him. No, they need help, and I can help them. Daisuke muttered the last part, looking at the digimental in his hand. He then turned to Vmon. Vmon. Let's go. Vmon cheered, running with Daisuke to the fight. Daisuke stopped as Vmon keep running, holding out the digimental up. The digimental glowed a bright fire red, enveloping Vmon in the light and fire. Vmon armor Shinka. The fire of courage, Fladramon. Fladramon shouted, breaking out of the fire. He landed between Naruto and Hikari. Room for one more? Fladramon, how did you evolve? Hikari asked, taking her eyes off Monochromon. Worry about that later. Naruto shouted, drawing Hikari's attention back to Monochromon, who was charging at them. The three leap out of the way, leaving Monochromon to crash into a tree behind where they were standing. Naruto glanced at Fladramon. You can't grab his horn anymore. He learned from that. If you try, hell just blast the ground, and he moves too much to get a clear shot at the ring. Can you restrain him somehow? Fladramon asked, watching Monochromon. Naruto thought for a second before smiling, pulling out ninja wire. Maybe we can. Hikari, tie this to your kunai. Naruto said, giving her some of the ninja wire he cut with his kunai along with two move kunai. Well, lure him into the middle of the path, then pin him under the wire. With the two of us and some chakra we should be able to keep him down. When we do, he's all yours, Fladramon, Naruto said, smiling. Fladramon nodded. I have an idea. It'll get him to stay still so you can pin him. All right, just be careful, Naruto said, turning back to the Monochromon. Hikari nodded, taking the kunai and preparing to move. The three smiled when they saw Monochromon charging at them again. Now! Naruto shouted, leaping to Monochromon's side. Hikari jumped to his other side as Fladramon charged Monochromon. Fladramon grabbed Fladramon's head, not giving him time to attack as he flipped Monochromon over his shoulder. He turned to Naruto and Hikari. Now's your chance. Naruto and Hikari nodded, jumping into the air and throwing the kunai over Monochromon and pinning them to ground. They pulled the wire, forcing Monochromon to the ground, channeling chakra into the wire. Now Fladramon. they shouted in unison. Flashback charged at Monochromon. Monochromon, still able to move its head, turned to Flashback and fired 3 volcano strikes at him. Flashback simple punched the attacks, them being weaker than normal and Flashback being strong against fire himself. He jumped into the air, getting a clear shot at the dark ring around Monochromon. He lit himself on fire, fire rocket. Flashback shouted, dive bombing the ring, shattering it on contact. He landed behind Monochromon, de-evolving back to Vmon. A light flew from Vmon back to Daisuke's Digivice. The Digivice shot a beam into his pocket right after. Daisuke dug into his pocket, pulling out a D-terminal. He opened the screen cover, showing the digimental on the screen. Naruto and Hikari smiled, pulling the kunai out of the ground and freeing the now free Monochromon. Naruto collected his equipment as Hikari started stroking Monochromon's head. It'll be okay now. Naruto smiled before scowling and throwing 4 shuriken into the trees. The remains of 4 different dark rings fell from the branches. He smiled at his work, turning to see Hikari waving at the Monochromon walking away. He smiled, shouting, sorry for being so rough. The Monochromon gave out a light roar, responding to Naruto. Takaru walked up next to the two, watching Monochromon leave. A normally docile Digimon like that becomes a ferocious servant of the Kaiser. He's going to pay. This is just wrong. Naruto scowled, before turning to Daisuke and Vmon. Seeing the shake hands, he walked over, holding his arm as it started to heal again. Hey Daisuke. Daisuke stopped shaking Vmon's hand, turning to Naruto. He winced, expecting to be chewed out for not running away. He was surprised when he heard, good job out there. Daisuke opened his eyes, seeing Naruto holding out his non-burnt hand. Daisuke smiled, shaking Naruto's hand. Thanks. Hey Naruto, can you? Naruto looked confused, not expecting a question as Daisuke asked. Can you teach me how to do that? That was awesome. Naruto face vaulted, honestly expecting something different question. Daisuke looked at him confused as Naruto stood back up. To be honest, I expected a different question. I'll tell you what. I'll think it over. I can't answer right away because for one my arm for one. It'll heal by the end of the day before you ask, Naruto said. Seeing Daisuke's and Vmon's look of concern then go to shock at what Naruto had said. Naruto only chuckled. It's a long story. How about tomorrow I give you the full story on what we've been through? That okay with you guys? Naruto asked, turning back to Hikari, Takaru, Taichi, and their Digimon. The group smiled and nodded, seeing no reason to hide their past. Naruto nodded back, turning to Daisuke again. There you go. Tomorrow you get the whole story. Right now, let's go back home. There's a lot we need to take care of for tomorrow, Naruto said smiling. He then noticed Daisuke's goggles were broken. Naruto smiled, patting Daisuke's back. First thing is to get you another pair of goggles. Naruto is keeping Taichi's goggles. I have a plan for that. Daisuke looked up at his goggles, pulling them off his head. He frowned for a second before smiling and tucking them away to throw out later back in the human world. He then smiled at Naruto. Thanks Naruto. Daisuke then frowned, remembering on how he had treated Naruto over the years. No, not like the villagers. He just didn't like Naruto since Naruto was close to Hikari. And Naruto, sorry about how I have been treating you over the years. Naruto smiled back. Me too. Put that all behind us? Daisuke nodded again, starting to laugh. Naruto chuckled before his arm started to sting again. Let's go back home. I want to put some of that burn medicine on my arm while I wait for it heal up, and something tells me everything will be alright for now, Naruto said, turning to the sunset. Yeah, the Kaiser only appears here during the day, Tailman said, moving next to them. Really? I wonder why, Naruto said, turning to Tailman. Naruto then turned to Taichi. We'd better get home before Okawa-san worries too much. Naruto-kun. Are you sure Daisuke should know about that? Hikari asked a bit concerned. No? Know about what? Daisuke asked, looking between the two. He'll find out sooner or later since he is a Cho's child now, Naruto told her before smiling at Daisuke. I live with Hikari-chan and Taichi. Daisuke was quiet, blinking a few times. Everyone was worried when Daisuke screamed, what? Naruto and Hikari held their ears in pain. Daisuke looked at the two, mainly Hikari, to ask if it was true, only to see them in pain. He then remembered Naruto asking him not to yell. Daisuke quickly dropped, scratching the back of his head. Sorry, but is it true? Taichi smiled and nodded. Yeah, Naruto is my roommate, Taichi said, turning to Naruto. So which way did you come in? Naruto was digging in his ear with his pinky. That way. And Daisuke, we may be friends now, but you yell like that again and I'll glue your lips shut. And it'll help, Hikari added. She saw Daisuke as a friend, but her ears were into much pain to care at the moment. Daisuke gulped, laughing nervously at the prospect of being on the wrathful side of both Naruto and Hikari. It was no secret the two had a prank war going on between them, seeing as half the time it was a public display. Daisuke only raised his hands defensively. I got it, no yelling. Good, now let's get going, Naruto said, still rubbing his head. Everyone followed him back down the path they came. As they made their way back, they heard someone say, "Why did you have to take so much time, Iori?" "I couldn't help it," Iori said, told the voice. "I went and got the ohagi." Everyone stopped and looked at the TV the voices were coming from. Naruto stared at it with a blank stare. "We came through something that small?" Naruto asked, not having looked when they arrived in the digital world. Everyone had the same look as the crouched down at the TV. Naruto scratched his head. "So how do we go back?" Naruto then saw Miyako, Iori, and Kushiro eating something. "Hey, I can see everyone back at school." Everyone looked closer to indeed see everyone finish eating something. When Miyako finished, she said, "Ah, that was good. Well, shall we go?" Kushiro looked puzzled as he asked, to where? Isn't it obvious?" Miyako said, pointing to the computer monitor, "to the digital world." Miyako looked to the monitor, only to yell in surprise. The yell was heard through the screen, making Naruto and Hikari wince. "What is with all the screaming today?" they said in unison again before looking at each other, then looking away with a slight blush. Daisuke moved in front of the screen. "Hey, it's me, Daisuke," he said to the screen, touching it. The screen glowed before sucking in everyone but the Digimon. The Digimon just stared at the screen as Agumon said, "They got sucked in." Everyone screamed as they were all ejected from the screen at the same time, landing on the others. Naruto, on the bottom, only winced. "Next time, we go one at a time if this is how we're going to come out," Naruto said, glad his now halfway healed arm was outside the pile. Hikari nodded, being the lucky one and landing on the outside of the pile with Miyako. "You came back from the digital world?" Iori asked, being the only one who completely avoided the pile-up. "Yeah, that's right, we came back," Daisuke said excitedly, popping out of the pile. He stood up along with everyone else, moving over to the doorway. "It was so cool. This big dinosaur Digimon started coming after us." Daisuke said, going to say more when Miyako interrupted him. "I want to go too." "You can't," Naruto said, rubbing his arm, which was now covered by his jacket. "You need a Digivice, plus the gate is closed," Naruto said, looking at the monitor. Miyako gasped, shoving Naruto and Taichi out of the way and looking at the screen. She shook it violently. "Well, make it open again." Naruto was surprised when Miyako shoved him, not able to recover fast enough to stop from hitting the wall on his still healing arm. He gasped in pain before crying anime tears. "Why does this always happen?" Hikari smiled softly as she checked on Naruto, hearing what he said. Everyone soon agreed to head home, leaving the school. As everyone split up, heading to their homes. As they did, Naruto asked Taichi, "So we meeting with everyone tonight?" "Yeah, by the way," Taichi said, turning to Naruto, "what's for dinner?" Taichi asked, smiling, eagerly wanting to know what Naruto was going to cook. The family had discovered after one night they left Naruto, Hikari, and Taichi alone for a few hours. Naruto decided to experiment and made a basic meal he found in a cookbook. Hikari and Taichi fell in love with Naruto's cooking. When their parents returned, Hikari and Taichi made them try the small amount they had left for their parents. They had the same reaction, falling in love with Naruto's cooking. It was decided from then on Naruto would cook dinner for the family. "I thought it was takeout night." Naruto asked only to receive a shake of the head. He sighed, "Guess I'll have to see what we have and improvise." "You're going to help me, right, Hikari-chan?" Hikari smiled and nodded. Naruto sighed in relief. "Good. I was worried I'd have to actually use my clones. Okawa-san hates it when I surprise her with extras of me running around the apartment, mainly because she doesn't know which one is me," Naruto said with a laugh, getting a chuckle out of the two. Soon the three were in the elevator, heading up to their floor. As they did, Naruto was in deep thought. When they reached their floor and exited the elevator, Naruto said, "We'd better tell them about what's going on." "I don't know about that. I don't know how Okawa-san will react when we tell her we have to save the digital world again," Taichi said, folding his arms behind his head. A gasp followed by something dropping made the three stop and sweat drop. They slowly turned around to see Yuko and Susumu standing there in shock. Yuko only raised her hand, pointing at the three. Did you just say that you have to save the digital world again?" The three smiled and scratched their heads, sweat dropping. Naruto was the one to break the news. "Yes, he did. I am sorry, Okawa-san, but the digital world needs our help again." "I see," was all Yuko said. She picked up her purse, walked to the door, unlocked it, and walked in. Susumu followed, worried about how his wife would react to his children's news. The three blinked, watching the two head inside. "That went well," Naruto said, Starting to head inside, Taichi and Hikari followed him inside. As soon as the door shut is when the screaming started. Why my children? Why must they be forced to fight? It was like that for the rest of the afternoon. After they finally managed to convince their Okawa-san they were not going to the digital world, Naruto, Hikari, and Taichi left their apartment and headed to the meeting place of the original chosen children. The three waited, everyone showing up except Mimi, who was in America, and Yamato. That didn't last long as Yamato soon arrived. Sorry I am late. You're not that late, Naruto said as he folded his arms behind his head from his position upside down on the chin-up bar, using chakra to stick to the bottom of the bar. Sora hopped off her seat on the monkey bars. It's been so long since we've all been together. Well, that won't be happening again for a while with what we found out, Naruto said, flipping himself over and landing next to Hikari. He then retold the tale of the day. Yamato was the first to react after Naruto finished. Armor Shinka? Taichi nodded, folding his hands together to his chin. Yeah, I've never seen anything like it. Agumon and the others couldn't evolve at all, but Daisuke's Digimon could. Daisuke from the soccer club, in the digital world? Sora asked, surprised at hearing he received a Digivice. Miyako-san and Iori-kun got the same type of Digivice too, Takaru told them. And so does the Kaiser, Naruto added. So those three are the new chosen children? Joe asked, looking at the ground. We think so, Kushiro said, but, Sora said, getting everyone's attention, if that Digimon Kaiser is indiscriminately hunting Digimon, I am worried about Piyomon and the others. Mimi-san sent an email from America. She's worried about Palmon, Hikari informed everyone. Why don't we go to the digital world also? Yamato asked, turning to Taichi. Apparently the gate only opens from after school to sunset, Naruto said, looking at Yamato. That or when we are needed. When we came back, the gate closed, but there is another issue. Naruto trailed off, looking at the night sky. The Kaiser is a person. The question, how do we deal with him? We can't just delete him like we did with the Dark Masters. Kushiro nodded, turning to everyone, and I doubt the police will help when we catch him. Taichi nodded, thinking for a second before turning to Naruto. Naruto, do you think your friends at the agency could help? I doubt it. It hasn't affected this world yet. The most they could do is watch him if they find out who he is, Naruto said, crossing his arms. The group nodded in understanding. Taichi sighed before saying, plus we need to figure out exactly how the Kaiser is controlling the Digimon. I think it's those obelisks, Naruto said, getting everyone's attention. From what Tailman told us, they started showing up when the Kaiser did. Plus wherever one appears, the Digimon can't evolve. It would make sense if they powered the dark rings. We can check tomorrow. I was planning on checking out the PCs in the computer lab tomorrow, Kushiro said, considering Naruto's theory. Well, you know we're in, Naruto said, smiling at Hikari and Taichi. I'll go too, Sora said, walking next to Hikari. Joe looked depressed as he said, sorry, I have an exam tomorrow. Yamato held the same look. I skipped practice today, so, Yamato said, referring to his band, still having his guitar on his back. I got it. Leave it to us, Taichi said, smiling, hopping off the bench he was sitting on. Well, keep an eye out for Gabumon, Gomamon, and Palmon too, Naruto said, smiling. Yamato smiled, nodding to Naruto. Thank you, let us know if anything happens. The group nodded. Hikari then looked at the clock post nearby before looking back at everyone. We'd better head home. Our parents might worry we went to the digital world. Your parents know? Everyone shouted, hearing Hikari. Naruto and Hikari held their ears again. Naruto was on the verge of losing his temper. That's the 5th time today. One more and the person who shouts will be speaking through a computer. Everyone's sweat dropped, laughing nervously as Taichi filled them in. Daisuke got a little excited today, and yeah, our folks know. We were debating on whether or not to tell them, and they overheard. It got rather loud after we went inside. Taichi finished, scratching his head. Everyone's sweat dropped, feeling bad for the two with sensitive hearing. Everyone who was going to the digital world agreed to meet in the computer lab after school before heading home. Next morning, Naruto was sitting on the floor, awake before anyone else. He was staring at something he had long hung up, his katana. He hadn't used it since he had moved in with his family. Along with most of his ninja gear, the only thing he kept on him was kunai and ninja wire. And even then Hikari made sure that he didn't bring any to school. Or tried to at least. He smiled at the memories before sighing. Standing up and walking over to the wall, he took his katana off the wall, sliding it between his belt and pants. He then moved over to his dresser, opening the top drawer. He took out his own supply pouch. He opened it, counting the smoke pelts, soldier pills, custom-made ninja wire, paper bombs he made, and a few new items he made, flash pellets, stick pellets, instant genjutsu seals, henge seals, and even instant summon seals. List at bottom explains what items do. Naruto smiled, attaching the pouch before going to the closet, attaching his own kunai and shuriken holsters. Digital world doesn't make quality work. Naruto joked to himself before pulling out another katana, this one being a ninjutsu. He strapped it to his back as he quietly left the room. Moving over to the kitchen counter, he took a notepad out of a drawer and wrote a note before putting it on the fridge. He then walked out the door, heading to the school. Hikari was the next person to wake up, about 30 minutes after Naruto left. She walked out into the kitchen in her pajamas, yawning as she rubbed the sleep from her eyes. She walked to the fridge, opening it and taking out a carton of orange juice. She grabbed a glass from the cabinet, pouring the juice into it before closing the carton and putting it back into the fridge. That's when she spotted the note Naruto had left. She took the note off the fridge, reading it, went out for early morning training session. Hikari, it was sword training, before you ask, which is why I didn't wake you. Naruto. Hikari laughed lightly. Naruto-kun, already working hard to help the digital world. Soon Hikari and Taichi left for school. As they rode the elevator, Taichi turned to Hikari. Naruto's katana isn't on the wall. I know, Hikari said, turning to her older brother. He left a note this morning on the fridge. After reading it, I knew he took it, since he didn't wake me for his early morning training session, and the only technique he wouldn't teach me was sword techniques, Hikari said. Stopping at the end, an awkward silence filled the elevator before Hikari said, Naruto-kun is going to go all out to save the digital world again. After what nearly happened last time, it's no surprise, he didn't have anyone on Earth to save at the time, now he does, Taichi said with a proud smile. The two then walked in silence, heading to school. They went their separate ways, and in about 20 minutes, Hikari made it to her classroom. There she took her seat next to Naruto, who looked a bit tired and sweaty. She smiled sweetly at him, went overboard again. Naruto chuckled, leaning onto his desk. Yeah, one too many clones. Hikari laughed quietly before noticing something. Where's your katana and equipment? Naruto looked around before leaning over and whispering, I hid them in the computer lab. Don't worry, I made sure no one would find them. Hikari nodded as the bell rang, signaling the beginning of class. The day went by slowly for the two. It was at its end, however, as the bell rang at the end of the school day. Dismissing class, Naruto and Hikari stood up and nodded, making their way to the computer lab with Takaru and Daisuke right behind them. Daisuke, of course, sporting the new pair of goggles he got with Naruto after they left for home yesterday afternoon. When they got there, Kushiro was already at work on a computer. Kushiro greeted the four before Naruto waved. Moving over to the corner of the room and squatting down, Takaru and Daisuke watched curiously as Hikari looked over Kushiro's shoulder at the computer screen. What are you doing, Kushiro-san? I am checking the gate, Kushiro said before the gate appeared on the screen. It's open. Good, Naruto said, smiling as he pulled a kunai out of his sleeve. Daisuke jumped at the sight of the kunai. You brought a knife to school? This is nothing. I used to bring 10 of these, 20 shuriken, and whole lot of other things, Naruto said before wedging the kunai between two tiles on the floor. Hikari nodded, confirming Naruto's story. It's true, Okawa-san would have to search Naruto-kun every morning to make sure he didn't bring any weapons, but she never could find all of them, Hikari said, smiling at the amusing memories. Daisuke and Takaru both looked surprised, but Miyako and Iori arrived before they could say anything. Taichi and Sora showed up soon after. Everyone greeted each other as they arrived. Then they heard Naruto removing tiles from the floor. They all looked over his shoulder to see him remove the last tile before hearing him. Finally, Naruto then pulled out his equipment pouch, kunai and shuriken holsters, then his ninjutsu. Daisuke looked at all the weapons with a sweat drop. Naruto, you don't need all of that, do you? Why does he even need all of that? Miyako asked, eyeing the weapons nervously. Iori seemed uncomfortable, but calmer than Miyako. I had a feeling the digital world was dangerous, but to need this much protection? Well, it's not all needed, Naruto said as he took out his piece of resistance, his Kyuubi fang. He smiled as he unsheathed the blade. It's been 3 years. I am looking forward to getting to use you again. The blade seemed to agree, giving off a shimmer. Naruto smiled, putting the blade back into its sheath before attaching all his equipment. He smiled at everyone else. It won't all be needed, but it's my nature as a shinobi. Shinobi? Miyako asked, now confused. Another story for another time, Naruto said as he joined everyone. Sora smiled softly, shaking her head. Habits die hard, they say. She then turned to Daisuke, Miyako, and Iori. May I see the new digivice? The three smiled and nodded. Taking out the digivices, Sora bent over, taking a good look at them. So that's what they look like. These are the digivices that came out of the digimental, Taichi told her. Kushiro, who had broken away from the group, came walking back up to the group. there aren't any problems with the PCs, just that the gate is temporarily open on this one. Kushiro informed them, placing a hand on the computer with the open gate on it before sitting down. However, there hasn't been any time where a gate would be open for 2 days in a row. Seems to me that it's only open after school or when something might be going on in the digital world, Naruto said, pulling out his digivice. Everyone followed Naruto's example, pulling out their digivices. Miyako watched everyone pull out their digivice. She then noticed something odd to her. All the old digivices were light blue and normal, but Naruto's stood out. It was blue and orange with a spiral pattern. She couldn't help but ask, Naruto, why is your digivice different? Naruto looked at his digivice and smiled. Again, another story for another time. Now let's get going, Naruto said excitedly. Everyone nodded, getting ready to go to the digital world when a voice said, oh, if it isn't Yagami. Taichi jumped. Recognizing the voice, he whipped around to see one of his old teachers as he said, it's been a while. Fujiyama-sensei, Taichi said, surprised to not only see his old teacher, but his old teacher there so late after school. Fujiyama smiled, seeing all his favorite students, Takenouchi and Izumi too. What are all the graduates doing here? Note: Takenouchi is Sora's last name. Taichi just seemed surprised to see his old sensei in the computer lab. Sensei, what are you doing here? I am in charge of the computer lab, Fujiyama said proudly, placing his hands at his sides. Taichi and Sora both looked surprised, saying at the same time, you can use a computer, sensei? Fujiyama didn't falter as he said, of course not. This only made Taichi and Sora hang their heads in disappointment. Taichi then smiled, hatching a plan. He started pushing Fujiyama out of the room. Right. I wanted to ask you something, sensei. What is it? Fujiyama asked as he was pushed out of the room. It's hard to keep up with the work in the middle school, but let's go somewhere else, Taichi said as he pushed Fujiyama out. He gave a quick victory sign to everyone as he left with his old sensei. Naruto smirked. Let's go while Taichi keeps him busy. Everyone nodded. Holding out their digivices, everyone disappeared into the screen. As they appeared in the digital world, Naruto took note of something, so it's only on the way back that we pile on each other. Everyone's sweat dropped at Naruto's comment except Miyako and Iori. The two were looking around in awe at the world, everyone appearing in a large plane. Iori took a few steps forward. This is the digital world. Iori then noticed his clothes change. Huh? My clothes change. Wow, cool, Miyako said excitedly as she looked over herself to see her new clothes. Daisuke, wanting to show off, walked over. Look, mine are really cool. Naruto only shook his head as the three started to debate whose clothes looked the coolest. Guys, we're here for a reason. Hikari sighed, standing next to Naruto. We need to find our Digimon before we go anywhere. The three turned to the two. Seeing their clothes, Miyako and Iori both looked at each other and said, theirs are definitely the coolest. Daisuke grumbled and looked away. Yeah, they are, I guess. Sora only looked at the three in amazement. These new chosen children seem really different from us. Is it the age? Hikari giggled at Sora's comment. Don't start talking like an old lady. And don't forget Hikari-chan, Takaru, and I are the same age as them, Naruto added, giving Sora a slightly annoyed stare. Naruto then turned and stared at a shadow moving across the ground. He looked up at the large obelisk the shadow came from. He couldn't help but scowl at the obelisk. Let's go. We need to find the others. The group started to search for their partners, wandering through the large plane they were in. Their search soon paid off, however, as everyone's Digimon partner came running up to them. Everyone's but one person's. Naruto looked around with a sad and worried look in his eyes as everyone reunited with their Digimon, muttering, Renamon and Kyuubi still haven't shown up. Hikari heard Naruto, turning to him with the same look as he had, only directed at Naruto. Naruto-kun. She was about to try and cheer him up when a sound caught her ears, causing them to point up as she turned to the sky. Naruto also heard the sound, looking to the sky with Hikari. Just as they did, the shadow of an obelisk moved over the group. When it passed, the shadow of a large insect Digimon was looming over the group. Everyone down! Naruto shouted as he drew his katana. The Digimon was a Snaiman. It roared before dive-bombing Sora and Piyomon. The two didn't have time to get out of the way of Snaiman. Takaru acted quickly, tackling the two out of the way. Snaiman flew over everyone's head, having to pull up before hitting the ground. Naruto smiled, grabbing onto one of Snaiman's legs. Snaiman started thrashing around when it felt Naruto on it. Naruto climbed onto Snaiman's back using chakra to stick to Snaiman. He then made a hand sign. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. A large pile of clones appeared on Snaiman's back, forcing to the ground from the sheer weight of the clones. Naruto grunted but smiled as he turned the hilt of his sword to the dark ring on Snaiman. I got it. Hon Hon Boomerang. A shout came as a large boomerang-shaped bone came out of the forest, plowing into the pile of clones and Naruto. All the clones dispelled as Naruto landed on his feet, wincing from the pain. Snyman didn't give Naruto another chance, quickly taking off into the air. However, now it was only going after Naruto. The boomerang went back to the forest, only to be caught by a large hand that appeared. Then a Monochromon came out of the forest, turning to the chosen children. Naruto smirked, unsheathing his ninjutsu. He spun the blades in his hand, dual-wielding the two swords. He looked over to Daisuke. Daisuke, Vmon. You take care of Monochromon. I'll get Snyman. Naruto didn't give room to argue as he charged at Snyman. Vmon agreed with Naruto. Daisuke, pull out the digimental. Daisuke nodded, pulling out his digivice. Only someone seemed to be working against a large hole appeared under Daisuke. Daisuke screamed in surprise as he fell into the hole. He managed to then grab a rock sticking out of the wall of the hole, hanging onto it to prevent falling any further. He then looked down to see a shadow with glowing red eyes. A Digimen appeared, it being the source of the red eyes. Daisuke, Vmon shouted worriedly. He was too worried about Daisuke to notice Monochromon throw its boomerang again. The boomerang hit Vmon in the back of his head, sending him straight into the hole. Daisuke gasped as Vmon fell in, grabbing him as he fell by. Unfortunately, by grabbing Vmon, Daisuke let go of the rock he was holding onto. The two fell into the clutches of Digimen. It trapped the two under its claw before pulling them deeper into the hole. Naruto swore at seeing Vmon and Daisuke being captured as he held off Snyman with his two swords. Snyman backed away before swinging its sickle arms again, twin sickle. Naruto only smirked, sidestepping out of the way. He then grabbed Snyman's leg, using every ounce of strength and throwing him into Monochromon. Naruto then ran towards the hole. He grabbed and threw his equipment pouch to Hikari. Hikari-chan. Get everyone to safety, I am going after Daisuke. Naruto shouted as he sheathed his ninjutsu before leaping head first into the hole. Hikari caught the pouch with ease, quickly digging into it. She then pulled out a small white pellet. She looked at the two Digimon with sad eyes whispering, I am sorry about this. She then channeled chakra into the pellet before throwing it at the two Digimon. She turned back to everyone shouting, look away and cover your eyes. Everyone did as instructed. The pellet landed at the two Digimon's feet before exploding in a bright light. The light blinded the two Digimon. Looking directly into it, they stumbled around, completely blind for a while. Hikari used that time to lead everyone away. This way. Hurry. Miyako and Iori didn't move however, shaking in fear. Miyako dropped to her knees, and no way, they got sucked into the ground. We have to help them, Iori said, but was unable to move himself. We have to go. Naruto will help Daisuke and Vmon, Kushiro said, helping Takaru and Sora get them to move as the Digimon helped distract the blind Digimon with noise away from the group. Hikari lead everyone away from the two Digimon, heading into the forest. With Naruto. Naruto landed softly on the floor of the hole. He looked around before smiling. The Digimen only made one tunnel, making it easy to follow. Unfortunately, Naruto couldn't run down the tunnel at full speed since the darkness limited his vision. Even with his eyes glowing, he had to be careful, seeing as any noise must alert the Digimen and make it much harder to rescue Daisuke and Vmon. He quietly ran down the tunnel at half his speed, giving him a good amount of control. He soon found himself in what seemed to be a jail room. Naruto looked around surprised, looking into one of the cells to see a Digimon with a dark ring around it. Naruto growled quickly, that damn Kaiser, these must be what he considers his toys. Well, it's time to show him the meaning of when the beaten dog won't bark to your face, it will bite when you turn your back. Naruto ripped the cell door off and dashed into the room before the Digimon could wake up. He broke off the dark ring. The Digimon regained its self-awareness as Naruto went to another cell. Soon all the cells were empty except one. Naruto's eyes widened in shock on who was in the cage, Renamon. All the Digimon were commanded to sleep until ordered otherwise apparently, as Renamon, despite all the noise Naruto had made, was sleeping in the middle of the floor. Naruto growled loudly this time, ripping the cell door off with enough force to take parts of the wall with it. He rushed in and broke off the ring. There he waited as Renamon woke up. Renamon soon came to, looking around before seeing Naruto. Naruto, you found me. She sounded extremely depressed. Don't worry Renamon, you were asleep when I found you. You didn't attack me if that's what you're thinking, Naruto said as he helped Renamon to her feet. He then realized something. If the Kaiser caught you, then he must have Kyuubi too. He's using Kyuubi as his personal bodyguard, Renamon told him. Naruto looked a bit surprised at what Renamon said, so she explained, we remember most of everything that happens even with the ring on. Well, that makes 3 to rescue, I'll explain on the way, Naruto said, leading Renamon and all of the Digimon out of the jail. As the Digimon ran free, Naruto went back into the jail. Damn, This isn't a part of his base of operations. Guess there's no reason to keep it standing, Naruto said, reaching for his equipment pouch. He gasped when he felt it wasn't there before sighing. That's right. I threw my pouch to Hikari-chan. Guess I'll just destroy this place another way. Kage Bunshin no Jutsu. Naruto said, making 10 clones of himself. The clones spread out along the jail as Naruto left, rejoining Renamon outside. As soon as he was out the door, all the clones shouted, boom. The clones exploded with extreme force, completely destroying the jail. Let's go. We need to hurry to save the others, Naruto said in an unusually calm voice, but he was thinking, Kaiser is about to have one hell of a beating. Naruto was pissed. With the chosen children. As Naruto destroyed the jail, the others were wandering through the forest, having lost the Snaiman and Mojimon. As they wandered, Miyako's and Yuri's digivice started to beep. Iori and Miyako took out their digivices as Iori said, what's this? The digivice is reacting. Everyone pulled out their digivices also, only to see they weren't reacting at all. But our digivices aren't reacting in any way, Takaru said. Piyomon and Tentomon looked at each other as Piyomon said, could it be because of that? No doubt, Tentomon said as he hovered in place. Piyomon nodded as everyone looked at them confused. Piyomon turned away from everyone shouting, everyone, follow us. Piyomon and Tentomon lead everyone out of the forest to a large pyramid. Everyone looked at it in awe as Iori asked, it looks like a Mayan pyramid, doesn't it? Everyone continued to follow Piyomon and Tentomon up the large staircase and into the pyramid. They soon came to a shrine in the pyramid. Piyomon pointed to the top of shrine to a pair of altars. Look there, Sora. Sora looked to the top of the shrine to gasp, are those digimentals? Everyone stopped and looked at the 2 digimentals after they climbed the last flight of stairs. Iori was looking at his digivice as it beeped louder and faster. It's reacting to this egg-looking thing. Sora and Kushiro noticed the digimentals had their crests on them. They nodded to each other before trying to lift the 2 digimentals. They had no luck. They then remembered what Taichi had said about him not being able to lift the digimental of courage, but Daisuke being able to lift it easily. The 2 looked to each other before turning to Miyako and Iori. Miyako-chan, can you try? Iori-kun, you too. Miyako and Iori were surprised, but agreed nonetheless. Iori moved to the digimental of knowledge and Miyako to the digimental of love. They both grasped the digimentals and pulled, only to have the 2 digimentals come off without a hitch. Everyone except Hikari and Takaru gasped in surprise. Hikari only tilted her head slightly. They could lift them. Just like Daisuke-kun with the digimental of courage, Takaru finished for her. Then 2 beams of light erupted from the 2 altars, one purple and the other orange. 2 Digimon, one looking like a bird and the other an armadillo, appeared in the lights before leaping out and landing in front of everyone. The bird offered its wing to Miyako. My name is Hawkmon. I have been waiting for you. The armadillo Digimon yawned loudly before saying, I slept well. He then looked at Iori. Are you the one who woke me up? My name is Armadimon. Thanks for waking me up. Dagyaw. Armadimon says Dagyaw at the end of his dialect. Iori nodded, looking unsure on what to say. So, Miyako-san, let us fight together, Hawkmon suddenly said to her. Wait a second. Miyako said nervously, backing up, I can't fight. Sora watched for a minute before smiling, taking Miyako's hands. Back then, a girl called Mimi-chan said the same thing. I don't want to fight. I don't want to see anyone hurt. I don't like it either, but someday, you'll be thankful for the meeting the Digimon and taking part in an adventure with them, so, do your best. Miyako took Sora's word to heart, looking down at their hands. Sora-san's hands are so warm. Miyako smiled and nodded to Sora. Kushiro followed Sora's example with Iori. Iori-kun, what do you think of the digital world? What do I think? Iori said as he looked to the ground. I don't know yet, I just got here. But you're thinking something, aren't you? Kushiro asked with a smile. Yeah, Iori said, starting to voice his opinion. I have my own theories, but new questions just keep popping up in my mind and I want to learn more. Kushiro only smiled brighter. You have a really curious mind, as I thought. A curious mind? Iori asked looking back to Kushiro. If you have any questions, just ask me, we're your friends, and we'll always help you out, let's learn together, Kushiro said smiling. Iori smiled and nodded. He and Miyako then turned to Armadimon and Hawkmon. Their digimentals began to glow as Hawkmon raised a wing and said, now, Miyako-san, Iori-kun, please yell digimental up. The 2 nodded, yelling at the same time, digimental up. The 2 digimentals gave off a bright flash. Hawkmon, Armor Shinka. Wings of Love, Holzman. Armadimon, Armor Shinka. Drill of Knowledge, Digman. Now, let us help our friends, Holzman said as he landed. Everyone nodded, reading to leave and rescue their friends. With Naruto. Naruto and Renamon were lying on top of a cliff above the Digimon Kaiser. Why don't we help him? Renamon whispered to Naruto. Naruto only continued to watch the Kaiser, because I want to know why he's doing this, plus we still don't know where he's keeping Vmon. Naruto whispered back. He was also worried about Kyuubi. He was supposed to be guarding Kaiser, but was nowhere to be seen. This had Naruto on guard, so he watched and waited for the Kaiser, who seemed to be waiting for Daisuke to wake up. He didn't have to wait long as Daisuke soon came to. He slowly opened his eyes before gasping in shock. He was shackled to the side of a cliff. Where? So you're awake? Who's that? Daisuke shouted, looking up the cliff. The voice only laughed. I didn't think capturing you would be so easy. I am disappointed that you weren't tougher. Daisuke managed to see a kid no older than him standing at the top of the cliff. He wore all dark purple with glasses to hide his eyes. Daisuke only scowled at the kid. Are you the Digimon Kaiser? That's right, aren't you a kid like me? Daisuke shouted to him angrily. Kaiser only laughed. Like you? Don't make me laugh. You and I are very different. This is the proof. Kaiser then snapped his fingers. A square of rocks retracted into the mountain across from Daisuke. It then came back out, only this time had Vmon shackled to it. Daisuke gasped seeing Vmon. Vmon. Daisuke. Vmon then laughed nervously. They got me. Damn it, if you could armor Shinka, Daisuke muttered. That's impossible, Kaiser said, pulling out Daisuke Digivice and D-Terminal. You can't do anything without these, right? Naruto managed to keep in a growl, so he knew about them. Okay, first thing is to get those back, then well grab Daisuke and Vmon. Renamon nodded, waiting for Naruto's signal to go. Damn it. Give me back my Digivice. Daisuke shouted at the Kaiser, release Vmon. I am not going to do that, Kaiser said with an amused smile. It's your punishment for trespassing in my area. I'll show you how your Digimon becomes my slave. Kaiser then snapped his fingers again. A dark ring appeared in the sky, slowly descending to Vmon. Vmon only taunted the Kaiser. Hey, you're free to try, but there's no way I'd become your slave. The Kaiser only laughed. Really? You know another one of my slaves said that? I believe he belongs to that blonde boy with the fox ears. Daisuke and Vmon both gasped as Kaiser said, come out Kitsumon. Kyuubi appeared next to Kaiser, his eyes glowing red showing he was under the Kaiser's control, the dark ring around his neck. The Kaiser only laughed. I'll admit he was able to resist for a while, but when I threatened to delete that Renamon, he caved in. Naruto's fur on his tail was standing straight up. He was furious. The only thing stopping him from removing the Kaiser's head from his shoulders was the fact that Kaiser was a human, and most likely had a family. That was the only reason he was letting the Kaiser live, but that didn't mean Naruto wasn't going to make him bleed. He slowly unsheathed his katana. Red Sun. A shout came as two red beams came and destroyed the dark ring. Miyako and Holzman came flying through the mountains. Daisuke. The rock around Vmon started to crack before breaking, revealing Digimon, who grabbed Vmon. We're here to save you, Dagya. Naruto saw his chance, leaping off the cliff. Now. Kaiser turned around just as Naruto and Renamon came down on him. Naruto didn't waste any time. Swing his katana straight at the Kaiser. The Kaiser only managed to dodge enough to have the katana cut his eye, destroying the right side of his glasses. He covered his eyes, looking up just in time to see Naruto cock his fist back. Kitsumon. He shouted, turning to see Kyuubi was struggling with Renamon. He then gasped in pain as Naruto punched his gut. Naruto then gave a roundhouse to his chin, kicking him into the air. Naruto quickly made 4 clones of himself. They all leap up at Kaiser, each one kicking him higher into the air. Uzumaki. Naruto, using his clones as stepping ladders, appeared above the Kaiser with a Rasengan. Naruto Rasengan Renden. Naruto shouted, shoving a Rasengan into Kaiser's stomach. Naruto made it weak enough to do some damage but not kill him. Naruto smirked, having taken Daisuke's Digivice and D-Terminal right before he attacked with the Rasengan. The Rasengan launched the Kaiser into the deep gap between the mountains. Kaiser grunted, pulling a whip out from under his cloak. He threw the end at a rock before calling one of the Digimon under his control. He landed on the Digimon's back, retreating, but he decided to not let everyone off so easily. Snymon, Mojiamon, Drymagemon, attack. The 3 Digimon appeared on the Kaiser's command. All Digimon headed for the group. Naruto landed on the ledge and shouted, Miyako. Catch. He then threw Daisuke's Digivice and D-Terminal to her. He then turned to Kyuubi, who was managing to overpower Renamon. He charged, quickly getting behind Kyuubi. Kyuubi saw this coming however, and threw Renamon into Naruto. Naruto hit the ground, dropping his katana of the ledge as his ninjutsu fell out of its sheath from the force. The 2 blades fell down the mountain. Everyone was gathered as the bottom of the valley the 2 mountains made. Daisuke hopped of Holzman, that Digimon Kaiser. Miyako handed Daisuke his Digivice and D-terminal, which he thanked her for before turning to Vmon. Alright. Counterattack. Vmon nodded, but before he could evolve, Naruto's blades landed right next to the group. Everyone looked up the mountain to see Naruto fighting with Kyuubi. Hikari gasped before grabbing Naruto's swords and running to the mountain. Miyako and Iori gasped, going to stop her when Hikari started running up the mountain. They only stared in shock as she ran to help Naruto and Renamon. Daisuke only laughed. Yeah, she surprised me too yesterday too. Miyako and Iori were too shocked to say anything, so Daisuke decided to speak for them. Alright. Let's go Vmon. Yeah. Vmon said as the Digivice started to give off a light. Daisuke nodded, holding out the Digivice, digimental up. The digimental of courage then came out of the Digivice. Vmon, armor Shinka. Burning courage, Fladramon. Fladramon's shout brought Miyako and Iori out of their stupor. Miyako quickly climbed back onto Holzman, seeing Snyman heading right for them. Miyako-san, hold on tight, Holzman said before taking off towards Snyman. Digimon saw Digimongemon started to tunnel underground, so he started to dig as well. Icicle rod. Mojiamon shouted, throwing a large icicle at the group.
Fladramon hopped onto a rock, facing Mojimon, fire against ice. Fladramon muttered as his claw began to glow. He caught the icicle as it came by his head, his claw melting it to water before evaporating it. Fladramon smiled at Mojimon's surprise as he reared back his claw, knuckle fire. Fireballs came from Fladramon's claw, heading straight for Mojimon. The fireballs made a direct hit, enveloping Mojimon in fire. The dark ring on Mojimon's arm broke, releasing Mojimon from the Digimon Kaiser's control as the fire died out. Snyman was launching wave after wave of his twin sickle attack at Miyako and Holzman. Holzman easily evaded the attack as the wings of his helmet glowed, Mach Impulse. Holzman launched two red blades of energy at Snyman before turning away. The attack went right by Snyman, cutting the dark ring around its waist without hitting Snyman. By the time Digimongemon made it to the tunnels he had made before, Digimon was already waiting. Gold Rush. Digimon shouted, launching his drills at Digimongemon. Digimongemon had nowhere to go as the drills exploded on contact, destroying the dark ring on its ankle. Naruto and Kyuubi were trading blows on top of the mountain. Kyuubi managed to get a claw swipe on Naruto's arm. Naruto winced, but spun around and giving Kyuubi a roundhouse to the face, sending Kyuubi staggering to the edge of the cliff. However, Kyuubi refused to go down without a fight, turning around and wrapping his tail around Naruto's neck. Naruto was surprised by the tail when Kyuubi suddenly pulled Naruto toward him. He elbowed Naruto in the gut before grabbing Naruto's cloak and throwing him into the wall of the cliff. Naruto grunted as he hit the wall, opening his eyes to see Kyuubi charging at him. Then Renamon suddenly appeared behind Kyuubi and put him in a restraint hold. Naruto charged at Kyuubi, only to have Kyuubi suddenly flip over him and slam Renamon into the cliff wall. Renamon let go in pain. Kyuubi then lit his claw on fire and turned to Naruto. Fox Fire. Naruto raised his arms to defend himself from the close-range attack, but it never came. Naruto lowered his arms to see Kyuubi had stopped just before his launched his attack. The dark ring no longer around his neck, but in pieces. Naruto blinked as Hikari moved out from behind Kyuubi, resting Naruto's katana on her shoulders and holding the ninjutsu in her other hand. Hikari was smiling as she walked up to Naruto and handed Naruto's swords to him. Here you go, Naruto-kun. Naruto smiled softly, taking the blades. Thank you Hikari-chan. Hikari couldn't help but blush as the soft tone Naruto used. Then a voice brought them out of their own worlds. What happened? The two looked at Kyuubi, who was holding his head as the memories came to. Okami, Kit, I am sore.
Don't worry about it Kyuubi, Naruto said with a chuckle as he sheathed his swords. You weren't in control. Renamon is fine and Kaiser is going to be sore for a long time, Naruto said before bursting into laughter with everyone. After everyone calmed down, they decided to join everyone on the bottom. Kaiser. The Digimon Kaiser was laughing. He was sitting in his chair, wincing in pain as he finished bandaging himself but laughing all the same. Now this is becoming fun. I wonder what Digimon I should play with next time, although I should make sure to not underestimate that fox kid again, otherwise my game would end. With everyone. Naruto, Hikari, Kyuubi, and Renamon landed at the bottom of the valley. Everyone gathered around them worried until Naruto ushered them off. Don't worry, we're fine, despite the small amount of blood and bruises me, Kyuubi, and Renamon have, plus I am pretty sure I left Kaiser a lot worse off. You managed to get a hit it? Daisuke asked, pumping his arm. I am pretty sure I broke an arm, or rib, Naruto said with a chuckle. He then turned to the three Digimon that were under the Kaiser's control, who were just standing near the group. Are you three okay? Yeah, that pain is nothing compared to being the Digimon Kaiser's slave, Mojimon said to everyone. Thank you for setting us free, Mojimon said before leading Snaiman and Drymagemon away. Hikari smiled, waving the 3 Digimon off before saying, it's getting late, we should head home. Everyone nodded, turning to leave. As they did, Hawkmon turned to Miyako. Miyako-san, will you help me from now on? Sure. Let's team up, Miyako told him, feeling much more confident. Armadamon was having his own conversation with Iori. Iori, I am looking forward to working with you, Dagya. I also look forward to it, Iori said with the same confidence as Miyako. Sora overheard them, smiling as she turned to the original chosen children. I hope they'll do their best to replace us. Kushiro looked a little surprised by Sora, but shook his head. No, we have to do our best too. Piyomon agreed with Kushiro as Tentomon said, we can't let the young ones beat us. Naruto only sighed. How many times do I have to say we're the same age as them? And why does Tentomon sound like an old man? Everyone heard Naruto's second sentence and laughed as Tentomon's face vaulted. They soon found a television, the portal to the human world. Human world. Ah, man. Fujiyama-sensei just can't stop talking, Taichi said as he walked back to the computer lab. As he did, he saw the flash of light and screams of surprise followed by crashing. Taichi ran to the computer lab only to laugh. Everyone came out of the monitor, much like the first time, piled together. Naruto swore from his position on the bottom of the pile along with Daisuke and Kushiro. Damn it. From now on we go one at a time. Taichi calmed down, now seeing what he missed the first time. You brought the Digimon too. Everyone gasped in surprise as they saw their Digimon next to them. Iori only looked at his partner. We didn't mean to bring them, they just followed us, but why did they change like that? I guess there's a height limit, Naruto said as he looked at Vixamon and Kidmon. It would be pretty hard to hide them in their rookie stage. Well, all but Patamon and Tailman, Naruto said before looking up at Hikari, who was on his back. Hikari-chan, can you please get off my back now? Hikari apologized as everyone began to get up. Sora then noticed 2 Digimon absent. Huh? Piyomon and Tentomon. Sora. Piyomon said from the monitor, still in the digital world with Tentomon. Well, try to find out more about the Digimon Kaiser. Well, let you know if we find something, Tentomon added. Okay. Be careful, Sora said to them. Kushiro turned to the monitor after straightening his clothes. Don't get into trouble. The 2 Digimon agreed before the gate closed itself. Naruto then yawned, covering his mouth before saying, let's get going. Okawa-san is going to chew me out if I don't get dinner started, Naruto said as he started to leave the computer lab with Kidmon and Vixamon riding on his shoulder. Everyone followed suit, heading home. Naruto, Hikari, and Taichi arrived before their parents did from work. They managed to fix up dinner right before Yuko and Susumu arrived home. When everyone was sitting around the table, the Digimon, or more specifically, Naruto's Digimon, made themselves known. Vixamon came bursting out of the door to Taichi's and Naruto's room to Naruto. I am hungry. Naruto, Hikari, and Taichi all froze, seeing Vixamon land on the table. Kyuubi, seeing no point in hiding anymore, came out of the room. Sorry kid, I tried to stop her but she is very persuasive. The 3 chosen children were now watching their parents nervously as Vixamon started eating the food on Naruto's plate. Susumu was in shock and Yuko was shaking before she shouted, you brought them home? Well, you see, this is what happened, the 3 said together, trying to figure out how to tell more to their parents. Thanks.